You're on the air with Florenza, your podcast destination for authentic conversations with a twist. So, grab your favorite drink, get comfy, and join me on this unique literary journey. Cheers! And joining us is Steve Anderson, author of numerous novels, mostly historical thrillers about gutsy underdogs. In an earlier life, he earned a master's in history and was a Fulbright Fellow in Germany. Day jobs have included busy waiter, associate press rookie, and language instructor. He's also written historical nonfiction and translated best-selling German novels. A hopeless soccer addict, he lives in his hometown of Portland, Oregon, with his wife, Renee. Welcome, Steve. I am so excited to chat with you about your new book and about your processes and such. And it's my goal to throw in a couple questions that perhaps you have not been asked before. Now, before I get into it, let's toast to a successful show. And I believe you are drinking something healthy. It looks like it should be warm in a mug. What is that, Steve?
It's peach tea. It's still the morning here on the West Coast, so I'm
Yeah,
taking it slow.
it's slightly the morning here, but I'm such a Gemini. It's never too early for a glass of wine. It is 6:00 a.m. somewhere.
So, somewhere. Well, thanks for having me. I appreciate it.
You are welcome. And so, since you guys are only listening to this, I am enjoying a glass of Vinho Verde Doc, and I don't know what that is. My daughter bought it for me. It is a wine from Portuguese, a white wine. And yeah, I'm going to probably pay for that since it is still slightly early. So I just want to first start off with saying the concept of a vigilante exposing powerful abusers through a twisted psychological thriller is brilliant. Was there a specific event or a real life issue that sparked this idea?
That is a great question. I can cut right to the chase and say it was my wife's idea. Uh,
Oh,
yeah, my wife Renee, she came up with it. Like many people, you see the news and you things happening and you see people getting away with things they should not be getting away with. And
uh-huh.
I also know we know some people who are the helpers in society. People in the front lines, whether they work in healthcare or law enforcement or social service. And I know that some of those people sometimes wish that they could go around the process a little bit and speed things up and make justice happen. And between that and my wife's idea, it just kind of struck me. Oh, I think I have something here. And it was a little bit out of my comfort zone because, as you've probably seen, I write a lot of things that are set in the World War II and Cold War eras, and
Yes.
use a lot of historical research using real life events and themes. But it's a little there are some things that cross over. But yeah, that's how I got there. Great question, by the way. You got me thinking.
I've been known to do that just in case you haven't been told. Now, shoot, it sounds like Renee should be in on this interview. Now, let me ask you though, when you finished the book and she read it, did you meet the intent of her thought, or did she come back and say, babe, I kind of feel what you were aiming for, but you just didn't hit it?
That's another great question. She's always my first reader, and
Uh-huh.
she gives me my gut take. She doesn't tell me what I want to hear, which is great. She wanted me to go a little darker. She wanted things to be a little she wanted the justice to be yeah, a, a little more intense, a little more satisfying for her, but I it was a tough call. I felt like there was a lot of dark stuff in here, and I wanted to somehow bring a hopeful message into it,
Mm-hmm.
which
Mm-hmm.
was kind of hard to do. So
Yeah.
that's where I went.
Yeah. Now, having tasted this dark side, because once you go dark, it's hard to go back. So So, have you been bitten by the dark side to continue on in this vein?
I I think so. Some of my other books have this, but not in the same fashion,
Uh-huh.
where people actually get their comeuppance.
Uh-huh. Uh-huh.
And so in my other books, there's some comeuppance, but you know, people also get away with it,
Yeah,
which
yeah,
is kind
yeah.
of sad. So yeah, I think I'm there. It's a good question. There's always consequences in these things, and
Yes, this is true.
whether it's hopeful or uh, whether they get away with it, and I'm always looking for those consequences because even the people that you know aren't able to somehow get their revenge, that they got to pay a price somehow. So
Yes.
I guess that's also a dark side of it.
Yeah.
So
Now,
yeah,
are
it's
you the
definitely my
hopeful?
thing.
Now, are you the more hopeful of the two of you? Because Renee sounds like she should be my best friend. And, I'm just going to slide you my cell phone number, tell Miss Renee when she's ready.
Yeah, yeah, she should be here. Um, yeah, I think so. I tell myself I'm looking for the logical result of things, but it's usually more hopeful than what Renee's finding. She's what do you call that?
She's
Not
a
doom
pessimist.
scrolling. Yeah, catastrophizing
Yes,
sometimes that we
yes.
all do. But
Uh-huh.
that's good because we kind of pull each other back.
Yeah.
I think.
Oh man, that's awesome. I am loving her already. And I think that was a great segue into my next question, which I did categorize under like themes and messages. And so Shogun deals with themes, as we just said, about justice and vengeance. And other than hope, which we just spoke about, what is it that you would really want the reader to walk away with?
That's a great question. I've said that 3 times now.
That's okay. I'm used to it. That's my middle name. Florenza, great question, Lee.
I I I I want the reader to come away with hope that if you stick to your guns and are a good person, even when you're doing something that is against the norms of society, and there are consequences,
Yeah.
sometimes you just got to step up for what's right, and don't give up hope,
Mm-hmm.
basically.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. I, at the time of this recording, well, June 12th, I turned 60. And, consequences in just consequences, period, because we understand the benefits of doing the right thing and the celebration of doing the right thing, but it just seems like in society as a whole the aspect of consequences to actions has been lost. And I've spoken to people. I had a friend that came up from Chicago to help me celebrate, and she and I were talking about, is it the era of everyone getting a trophy, right, just for participation, and so there's no consequence to not trying your hardest. My daughters were in sports. They sucked at sports. They were freaking horrible at sports. And their coach tried to give them a participation trophy. I'm like, freaking for what? Like, they suck. Unless that trophy says the suckiest player of the team, they are not getting a trophy, right? Like, they tried their best, they did their best, but we all admit, and that we're so brutally honest in this house, right? And so we were like, you guys suck. You're not getting a trophy. Do you find that books like yours, with messages like yours, are well received because they're offering a fresh approach, or do you find that you get some pushback from readers who aren't expecting to hear about consequences to behaviors?
Yeah, that's a good question. I think I'm about to find out with this book just coming out because I realize this is a new territory for me. I haven't done a book quite this way before. Um, my message usually is a little bit dark Um, you know, people survive, but just by being survivors.
Yes.
They're not doing something that's rises above what everyone else is doing. Yeah, I think that in fact, in this book, what they're doing, they know they're not going to get a trophy for it. And in fact, if they get found out, they'll probably go to jail. So,
Uh-huh. Uh-huh.
I guess in the long run down the road, if you get out and, write a book or something, that's a form of a trophy. But, yeah, I know what you mean about, everyone getting a trophy. I was a horrible, I hated sports when I was a little kid. I was
Uh-huh.
really into reading books and history books and stuff. And I sucked too. So
Yeah.
it's okay. But then later on, I hit puberty and suddenly I found I was really good at soccer and I liked it.
Okay.
So I don't know. There's always a trophy down the road, maybe.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Love it. Love it. Now, with your history background, how did that play into your desire to write? I know that it plays into your plot line, into your character, and it does so brilliantly. But was that part of your decision to put pen to paper and say, I'm gonna, jump in this writer's world?
Yeah, I did not, I'm not one of those people from, age 10 wanted to be a writer. I
Right.
was aware of it and I liked stories and all that. This wasn't something I considered doing or thought I could do. And I thought when I was younger, I was going to become a professor of history. And I was studying I'd planned to get my PhD and the whole thing in 20th century European history. And I was studying for my master's in Germany, and I was researching my master's thesis, which was on um, crime and plundering and all these things in early occupied Germany. And
Uh-huh.
the question of my thesis was like, well, how do you control all this when you're the Americans coming in and you're the occupiers? And what I found out was it was a really bad thing to research for an academic paper because there are so many things left out.
Correct.
No one's gonna, if someone committed a crime on either side, they're not gonna put it in a report.
Correct.
So that led me I realized academia wasn't for me, and I jumped out with a master's. Not knowing quite what I wanted to do, I realized kind of this light bulb moment that, oh, I could write about these things, but make stuff up that,
Y-
I could do the
Fiction is
history.
beautiful.
It's great. Yes. People criticize, facts in a book or a movie. You just say, it's a book, man. I mean,
Yes.
it's a story. So that's what got me going. It was a long time ago, and it took me a long time to get published. But I'm kind of glad I did because it really made me put in the hard work. And
Yeah.
I gave up some things. I probably gave up a career or two to find more time to write and
Yeah.
get this down.
Yeah. And that's that sacrifice part. But just like you said, it completely paid off. And so kudos to you, because now you have the best trophy of all trophies, which is a published book, because that so outlives all of us. Now, without it being a what did they say, a spoiler, in Shogun, you have a character, Alex, who is the mysterious vigilante. First off, was that Renee's idea, since now we know about Renee? And also, if not Renee's idea, what inspired their motives and their methods of moving throughout the story?
Yeah, the spoiler thing is tough here. That Alex was, I think, a collaboration between Renee and I just talking about it. It's tough to talk about Alex because if I
Yep.
talk about Alex in a
Then you got to
certain
talk
way,
about it. Uh-huh.
I'll give away who they are in the story. Um,
Well, we can end there, that Renee had input, because like I
yeah,
said, I am loving Renee. So we're gonna leave that there. Now, what about
I
Owen?
should call her back. She's at an appointment. What
So
I was going to say about Alex that Alex has this personal loss that, without giving too much away,
Uh-huh.
that gets revealed in the story, and that's the reason why Alex is doing what Alex
Is doing.
does.
Okay. Perfect. So there's a motive behind that.
Yeah.
Speaking still on the characters, Owen Tanaka plays a crucial role in the story as well. And with that, what makes him integral to the narrative that is present in Shogun?
Yeah, Owen starts out as this kind of almost nemesis or opposite of Alex. He's given the job of pursuing Alex and trying to find out who Alex is.
Mm-hmm.
But as he's an investigative reporter, by the way, and as Owen investigates further and further and gets closer to Alex, he realizes that what Alex is doing is actually right, and that Owen should stand up to without giving too much away.
Right. Uh-huh.
And then their paths kind of converge because what happens is they're actually both trying to find out the truth. You know,
Mm-hmm.
he's an investigative reporter, and Alex is
It's Alex.
who Alex is. Can't say
Uh-huh.
anything. So
Alex is Alex.
you're right. They're trying to get at the same truth basically, and so at that point, they have to do what's right.
They have to do what's right. I love that. They have to do what's right. Now, I am since you've been interviewed quite a few times, I've got to tell you a lot of times. What one question up until now have you never been asked that you, in the back of your mind, you're like, oh my gosh, I wish someone would ask it, but it's just not polite of me to ask myself?
um, wow, you are stumping me. I've never been stumped.
Yes, that's
I,
my trophy.
I Is there a book that if you could do it over again, you wish you had a redo?
Ooh, and which book would that be?
Do I have to say?
No. Now,
Um,
but I will ask this
I,
though, because that is a good question. Now, what have you learned? Let's flip it because I'm all about teachable moments. What have you learned since realizing that that book is worthy of a redo that you have now applied to the books that you're doing now?
that's a good one. You know, they always say when you're done with it, don't look back,
Oh,
don't
you
trip
always
over
look
what's
back.
behind
We
you, you
always look
know.
back.
But this one book started as a screenplay, and
Mm-hmm.
I rewrote it as a novel, and
Mm,
I wanted to be really dark and kind of crime noirish.
mm-hmm.
And I think it still stands up. It's one of those books where people either love it or they really just don't like it at
Okay.
all. And I
Mm-hmm.
think, you know, what do they say if you're not doing something right, if you're not
Right.
splitting the, you
Yeah.
know, the
You got to
views,
split the baby.
right? So I think that knowing what I know now from writing Show Game, I probably didn't have enough, even like a inkling of hope in it. It's pretty dark.
Dark.
Like the characters are they have reasons for doing what they do and you want to follow them, but I don't think anyone was left with the
With
same
hope.
kind of hopefulness. And it's a contemporary book, but it's also a little different kind of book as
Is
well.
there room in there for a part two, or is it just like a dead
I
horse?
I think that's a good question. I have a part two and I might revisit it.
Okay.
You know, gosh, I don't know. These days you can also there's nothing against redoing a book.
Yeah.
I think what I need to do is just sort of stick by it.
Mm-hmm.
And I should just mention it. It's a book called The Other Oregon, and I live in Portland. I'm from Oregon, and
Uh-huh.
it's about um it has a lot to do with the differences between urban Oregon and rural Oregon. And I kind of use that setting for a crime thriller, kind of a crime noir, dark
Mm-hmm.
thing. Um, and oddly, I wrote it, or actually it was published in 2015, but I'd been working on it for years, and it sort of predicted a lot of these weird things that happen with militias and that out
Yeah.
here.
Yeah.
Um, like you can't even make it up
Yeah. Yeah.
kind of stuff. So Anyway, it
So
is what it
it's your
is.
crystal ball.
I, I think so. I mean, I had friends and readers say, "Hey, what did you know about this stuff? Stuff that came later that was even crazier than
Yeah.
in my book." That I thought of stuff like that, and I realized, oh no, this world isn't going to get that crazy. We're not going to go there.
And we went
Um,
there.
but we did.
We
Yep.
went there. So, well, then, by virtue of what you just said, then I think the issue is not the book, Steve, but the fact that the world caught up with your book. And that's the scary part.
Maybe, yeah. I didn't really
Mm-hmm.
think about it that way. You're
Mm-hmm.
giving me some hope here. I
Yeah,
like it.
because it's not the book. I mean, the book did its job. The unfortunate thing is that you were right about it, you know? So I think that's probably the angst. And if a book two speaks to you, then you know what? Honor that book too, and don't feel like you didn't give hope. I think at the time, and I wrote it down to read the other organ, but at the time you were sensing a shift about to take place, and you were just, you know, obedient to be a conduit of those words, and ish happened. So you know,
You're right. Okay, you're inspiring me. I'm writing this down as a to do.
yeah, you were just a conduit of the message at the time. Um, let's see, we asked that. Oh my gosh, we are like right on base. Oh, this is probably the second to the last question that I have for you. Are there any behind the scenes stories from publishing show games that you haven't shared publicly yet? I know that the book is due to release. We still have a couple weeks out, but is there anything that's not yet been shared?
Do you mean things that were left out or
Yeah, or just some behind the scenes stories, maybe a backstory of one of the characters that would be helpful to the reader that just didn't need to be part of the book, but is a great additional, you know, um, nugget to have about either of the characters.
I will answer that by saying there it is in the book. I wanted to do more of it.
Okay.
And I had to pull back. There's this through line through the book where Owen is separated from his wife, Molly,
Mm-hmm.
and I can't give too much away, but it's this kind of through line in the book where they kind of discover who each other are and
Okay.
maybe get back together because of what happens in the
Of that.
book. And there, I wanted to just do a bunch of that.
Okay.
But then I was kind of venture towards a romance novel,
Yeah, no.
and that's not my deal. So
No, that's not my deal either. And I do romantic suspense under a pen name, but let me tell you, I just try to rush past that. I'm like, let me just shoot something, kill something, beat something, kidnap something, you know,
yeah, yeah, and there's nothing wrong with it. It's just, what we need to do, right?
what we need to do, not my thing. Um, last question. We talked about soccer, we talked about your love for history. Are there any other hobbies or activities that you enjoy doing when you're not writing?
That's a great question. We You can cut out all these great question calls. Um, my wife and I just we like traveling. We like exploring our own city.
Mhm.
I'm a little bit of a beer dork.
Oh,
I grew up
nice.
in Portland where the whole beer brewing movement started, among other places. And travel. If I had the means, we would be traveling all the time. I would be living out of a hotel and writing from there,
Yeah.
like
Yeah.
all those old school writers used to do.
And that today, a friend of mine who just came up to celebrate my birthday, she and I are working on um a science fiction project right now. And we were talking about just how awesome it would be to just be able to like take a year or two and just pack up and go from either Airbnb to Airbnb or just get a fifth wheel and just like hit the open roads, right? And do nothing. And boy, that would be amazing. That would be amazing.
Wouldn't
Until
that be?
yes,
And
where are the listeners able to interact with you? We don't like saying following. We like to say interact and come and chill out with you digitally and virtually.
Yeah, that's a good way of putting it because I will interact. Sometimes people online don't respond to people's questions and stuff, and that's kind of not really what was meant to be. But anyway, uh, I did a weird thing. My name is Steve Anderson, which for my generation is like one of the most normal names around. There's a
It's like
million of us.
it's like Bill Jones.
Yeah, totally. So if I could do it again, I would come up with some fancy pen name.
Uh-huh.
But I didn't. So my website is very specific. It's Stephen with a PH. F, my middle name is Frederick Anderson, S-O-N. So StephenFAnderson.com. That
Okay.
kind of helps set me apart. That's my site. It's got all this stuff on there, including my newsletter, which I do, which isn't just like, buy my book and all that kind of things. It's stories behind my stories. There's writing stuff in there, things like that. People can sign up for that if they wish. And I'm on all this stuff. I'm on the Facebook and the Instagram. And an easy way to remember me is my handle is almost always Steve, the letter A, and writer, Steve A. Writer. I didn't. It ended up being a pun. I didn't realize that it was, but that's how it worked out. Yeah, that's where you can find me. I'm around.
Nice. And for the readers, I am going to put in for the listeners, I'm going to put in the comments that the Open Roads website also has samples of Steve's titles. You're able to get like the first 2 chapters. I told him it is like a beautiful drug deal where they give you a little bit for free, but then you got to pay for the rest. And it really does make you want to go and get the books, because just from the opening lines, you are hooked. And so I'm excited that I had a chance to talk to you, and I'm excited to hear like multiple times. That's a great question, because that's what I live for, to kind of hear that that's a great question thing.
Well, I'm excited. This was fun. I love being kept on my toes. You're good at it.
Yes. Now, we're going to do, as is my tradition, other than to drink a lot on the show. I just feel like I'm old school Hoda and Kathy Lee. I should have been like the third person on that show, because those ladies drank a lot of wine. I've got some this or that for you. In the category that I pulled up for you is tech and gadgets. So I'm just going to give you 2 things, and without like thinking too much about it, just whichever one pops up to be closer to you. Well, this is dumb because I see it, but wire headphones or Bluetooth earbuds?
Earbuds.
Yep. Smartwatch or traditional watch?
Ooh, no watch.
Me,
Do I have to answer? I
no,
just don't. Yeah.
me either. And I've got plenty of them in a safe because I got to keep them in a safe. But yeah, none.
Yeah, I like
Um,
the idea of a vintage watch, but I don't wear
Soulmates. I feel you right there.
it.
Console gaming or PC gaming, or neither?
Either
Yeah, I'm with you
sound
on
really
that.
boring.
Yeah, no, listen, we're writers. What, we're doing our
Right.
thing. E-readers or tablet?
Mm, tablet.
Okay, and last one, iPhone or Android?
iPhone.
Oh, dang, you got that wrong. No,
I'm sorry.
I am all day Android. Um, Thank you, Steve. This was absolutely amazing. And please tell Miss Renee, we're going to have you back on, and I want her on as well. We will figure it out, because I think Renee's got some tidbits and some details that the listeners would love to hear.
I think so. She would give you a show for sure.
Awesome. And this wraps up another episode of On the Air with Florenza. You may follow me on all social media platforms under Florenza Lee, or via my website at florenza.org. Until next time, cheers.